It is the very smallest of all the provinces in Afghanistan. About 100 kilometers to the east of Kabul sits Kapisa. It is a place of bad memories for the French army. Kapisa, where the highest number of French soldiers lost their lives in the war against the Taliban. It was an operation that began back in 2001 in the wake of the September the 11th attacks, the US quickly pointing the finger at Osama bin Laden and demanded his immediate extradition from Afghanistan, where he'd found refuge. The Taliban, though, which controlled much of the country, refused. The US, soon supported by the UN Security Council, NATO and most Western countries, began on the 7th of October a huge military offensive. The offensive announced from the White House by US President George Bush.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. These carefully targeted actions are designed to disrupt the use of Afghanistan as a terrorist base of operations and to attack the military capability of the Taliban regime.
In reality, France joined the coalition by sending troops at the start of November. It was a lightning war. In just 5 weeks, the Taliban regime overthrown. But guerrilla-style attacks were only just beginning. NATO countries deployed troops to ensure security across a series of provinces and to train a fledgling Afghan army. As part of that, French soldiers sent to Kapisa in 2008. They faced, though, were regular ambushes and suicide attacks by the Taliban until they handed over their base to the Afghan army, supported by a small American contingent near the end of 2012. So 6 years after that withdrawal, what now is the situation in Kapisa? Well, France has invested heavily in the region, helping with new infrastructure, including electricity supplies. But what has happened to what was built? And as even more US troops now prepare to leave the country, how do local people there see the future? Well, Margot Ben, Sonia Ghazali, Solène Chalvon and Shazaib Wala revisit Kapisa for France 24.
Afghanistan's Kapisa province. For the past 4 decades, warlords, the Taliban, Afghan soldiers and militias have been battling for control of its vast plains and rugged mountains. When French troops were sent to Afghanistan in 2008 as part of a NATO-led operation, this is where most of them fought. But 6 years ago, they left, and Afghan soldiers have been defending Kapisa on their own. Captain Ali MARDAN AMIRI is one of the officers running military operations in the province.
We're on our way to our outpost on the front line. It's 5 kilometers from here. It's on a hill which overlooks enemy positions.
The Taliban are all around, but to reach the outpost, we go through villages fully controlled by government forces. This is the last military outpost in the district. Beyond it are the Taliban.
Since foreign troops left, we've lost a lot of ground. And this is the only small base that we still have. We control this mountain on which we're standing, but below us is Hajvan village, which the Taliban recently seized from us, along with the surrounding countryside. Over there you can see Afghania Hill. It's also crawling with enemies. All these areas you can see used to be safe, but not anymore.
Amiri's men face constant attacks, particularly at nightfall.
Soldiers, tell me, how were the past 3 nights?
The Taliban have been attacking us relentlessly. They tell our leaders they're willing to negotiate and make peace, but that's a lie. We're here every day on the front line. We know what the situation is. These past days, they just kept shooting at us. Every single night, they shoot and they shoot.
Since the French began leaving Kapisa in 2012, the security situation has worsened dramatically. Even then, if you were French, the province had a reputation as the worst place you could be sent. Of the 89 French soldiers who died in Afghanistan, 2/3 died here. This was the last base where the French soldiers served as they pulled out of Afghanistan. Today it's controlled by the Afghan army. The last remains of the French presence are locked in these containers.
When the French left this base, they left everything behind. They just took their weapons and ammunition. Everything you see here used to belong to the French. We packed their tents and their belongings and stored them here to protect them from the rain. Our electric system is not powerful enough to use these appliances. The French soldiers had a powerful generator. We don't, so we can't use any of this.
The province also benefited from several development programs funded by the French government. Shukriya NASIRI is a member of Kapisa's provincial council. She's unmarried and very active in local politics, both of which are very unusual for a woman in Afghanistan. With her, we visit the area's largest hospital, which was partly built by French funding.
Look at all this. Look at the appalling state everything is in. There's water leaking from the ceiling. Look at this wall.
It's crumbling.
The work they've done, it's really poor quality. Look, it's very cheap materials. Everything is just falling to pieces.
I came here to get a sense of the problems faced by the staff in this hospital. It's my duty as a member of the Provincial Council to be a bridge between the people and their government. There is so much to do. The building needs to be renovated. The state of the operations room and the children's ward is also very concerning.
Staff say that 2 years after the hospital was built, the building had already begun to decay.
Hello, little one. How are you feeling today? How's my little Suhail? What's wrong with him?
His body was swelling and he kept throwing up.
The patient's name is Suhail. He's 16 months old, he has acute diarrhea and suffers from pneumonia. When it's cold and humid inside, children quickly become ill. And that's even the case in this hospital ward where the humidity even creates mould. But there's no alternative. We have to welcome our patients here. It's our paediatric wing.
Every day, at dusk, Shukriya NASIRI goes to visit relatives in a small village. Like 80% of the province's inhabitants, they have limited access to electricity. It comes out at 6 p.m. sharp, so at that time, the entire family gathers.
Power's back.
There's only enough electricity to switch on the lights and the television. The voltage is not powerful enough for a clothes iron, let alone larger appliances like an electric oven. Nizrab district is divided into 5 valleys. Our village is in the east of Harij Valley. On the other side of the river, there are 2,500 houses, and they are lucky enough to have electricity all day.
This power plant was funded by France, which began a vast electrification program in the province. But the Afghan authorities halted the project, so that today only 15% of the province has access to electricity. SHUKRIA NASIRI heads to the provincial council. She never goes anywhere without her bodyguards.
The security situation has worsened, so the Afghan president has ordered all provincial council members to constantly be flanked by at least 3 bodyguards. Personally, I was threatened several times, which is why I never go anywhere without my security team.
Today's council meeting focuses on the difficulties faced by the health sector in the region.
I went to visit the 50-bed hospital in Nizrab. It needs to be completely redone. The walls are crumbling. You can actually detach pieces of the wall with your hands. And there's water dripping from the ceiling.
France had granted us 61.5 million euros. This money, this aid, was supposed to fund projects in the districts of Tagab, Nizrab, Al-Asai, and Sorubi. And I believe that out of these 61.5 million euros, less than 10 million were spent. I have no idea what happened to the rest of that big sum of money. And I wonder why those projects never materialized.
In Afghanistan, corruption is rife and foreign funding often diverted. We asked the French Development Agency whether we could consult the audits it had carried out, but we were not able to. Kapisa has a reputation in Afghanistan for being progressive. Girls' education is encouraged in many families, and the number of women in education is higher than in other provinces.
This is Yasin Zahi School for Girls. It was built thanks to donations from the French government. As you can read here, it was built in 2014.
How many lawmakers are there in the parliament?
250.
Very good.
Can I come in?
Please do.
Do any of you find it difficult or unsafe to come to school each morning? Have you had any threats from people, like the Taliban? I know some of the girls here are from the districts of Al-Asai and Afghania. Over there are no schools for girls and young women, so they must face a lot of difficulties to come here.
This teenager, who asked that we not reveal her name, comes from a district where the Taliban are very active.
It has been several years since girls in my village had a school to go to. People don't want us to get an education. We want to learn and get degrees, but nobody wants us to succeed. On top of that, because of the war and the fighting, schools are often closed. So I come here to study, but it's very dangerous. When I go through Taliban-controlled areas, I wear a burqa. I only remove it when I get here. If the Taliban discover that I come to school here, I could be threatened or even killed.
The southern part of the province is very unstable and rife with Taliban fighters. Back at Nizrab military base, the soldiers are determined not to give up. They undergo daily trainings and artillery courses. Although the Taliban and the Afghan government have begun peace talks, Captain AMIRI doesn't believe peace is within reach.
When the Taliban regime was overthrown in 2001, we took great pains to rebuild the country. Now we don't want to lose the government and progress that we have. The Taliban are Afghans like us. So if they want to lower their weapons and join us in building the country, we will welcome them happily. But if they want to take power by force, we will stand in their way. In the past, we had only Kalashnikovs, but today we have small arms and heavy weapons and modern equipment to defend our country.
More than half of the country is contested, an ungoverned battleground between the extremist group and a tired, worn-out Afghan army. US troops are the only foreign force left fighting in the country, but they too may well leave within months.
Margot Ben, Sonia Ghazali, Solène Chalvon and Shazé Bouala revisiting Kapisa for France 24. Well, that's all from this week's edition. Don't forget, of course, you can catch it and the previous editions as well on our website at france24.com. More news coming up. Thanks very much for watching.